Hello there, everyone. Thank you for being a part of Ascendance's Global Game Changer Summit, and I'm really looking forward to getting to know all of you guys today. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so to just get started, we'll just go straight to it. Let me introduce
All right.
myself, and I'll let you guys get to it after me. Hello, everyone. This is your moderator, Ethan Say. I currently attend the University of Pennsylvania, where I'm a master's student of public health in the School of Medicine. I've been a founder of various new ventures in the impact space. My most recent is Bio Breakthrough Initiative, which aims to democratize health and biotech entrepreneurship education. I'm also a part of our business school's Wharton Impact Venture Associates, which means I get to interview amazing entrepreneurs every week, evaluate their business, and hopefully invest in them. Speaking of amazing entrepreneurs, today we are joined by three. I'll let them introduce themselves, starting with Nunzio.
Right. Thank you, Ethan, and delighted to be part of the Global Game Changer Summit for the second year. So I am Nunzio Quacquarelli. I'm the founder and president of QS. We are best known for our activities like the QS World University Rankings and serve over 2,000 universities around the world. Let me just give you a little bit of my background. I'm a first generation Italian family to the UK. First member of the family to go to university, went to Cambridge, studied economics, and then after a few years in consulting, went to the Wharton School, so graduated Wharton grad 1990, and QS began as a Wharton social venture. So I actually began it with fellow students on the campus of Wharton because I wanted to do something that kind of reflected my own experiences in international education. And so we set up the same mission in 1990 that we have today, which is to empower motivated young people anywhere in the world to fulfill their potential through educational achievement, international mobility, and career development. It's something I remain very passionate about. The beauty of being a social enterprise is that you really can, it really gets you out of bed every morning with a sense of passion and excitement because we know that we're doing good. And that's something I like to share with other people, encourage other people to do as well. Back to you.
Cool. Ken, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Ken Myers, live in Philadelphia. Currently, I'm the president and co-founder of, the best way to describe it would be a hospitality tech company. So what we help our clients do is manage the immense and enormous complexities of global mobility and travel. And with a special slant on the film and television industry, but also now segueing through our partnerships into corporate mobility and travel. I'm also the president of the Philadelphia Rotary Club, if anyone is familiar with Rotary International or is a member. And definitely very excited to talk to you tonight because I have taken over the last 20 to 25 years the road least traveled and just wrapped up 7 years living in Germany a few years ago, and prior to that, did my graduate studies in Beijing, China. So very excited for this international audience and being able to share some of my own experiences and thoughts with you.
Awesome.
Interesting.
Cool. And Kim, I could introduce you a little bit and then just keep adding on. Sound good, or would you like to?
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So Kim he's from KL, Malaysia. He is the founder of QuikMaster, which is a comprehensive online leveraging platform that helps online entrepreneurs rapidly grow their business. They massively empower how entrepreneurs learn, scale, and become profitable in e-commerce and digital marketing, regardless if they're selling offline, online, and social media. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kim,
Thank you, Ethan.
Cool. Sweet. So today our topic is entrepreneurship education, why it matters. So we know that entrepreneurship has a long history of spurring economic innovation, challenging the status quo, and creating these new jobs. So it sounds all cool, but it's not always glitz and glamour. There are tons of challenges in starting your own business, one of which is timing. So drawing upon your own life, question to the panel, when is the right time to start a business?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who wants to go first?
Right.
I can share my thoughts from my own perspective, since it's about 5 or 6 years fresh. My answer specifically would be anytime you're struck with inspiration that meets opportunity. That is essentially what happened to me when I came back from Germany. I was already in my mid to late 30s by that point. And so a lot of people would say, well, that's a little bit late to start a company, don't you think? Don't you have other priorities to focus on? And I did get that feedback from a lot of people, especially having come from the corporate world and worked in the corporate world for so many years. And I just felt very resolute and very passionate about the solution that my business partner and I had unfurled or uncovered in sort of our investigation of where gaps are in the niche market. And so we took that leap of faith. I always call it the leap from the lion's head, because it truly is at the end of the day. But I would get out any thoughts in any of your minds that you may have that, oh, it's not the right time, the economy's not good, I have a great idea, but I'm too old or I'm too young or whatever the case may be. I think when opportunity meets the passion or the innovation that struck you, even if that's an epiphany, that is the ideal time to get involved. So in other words, that can be any time from my perspective.
Yeah, I can agree and relate to that. I think it is any time, as long as you find the passion in you, you find especially the purpose, or the reason, the why you want to start the business. So I think as long as you have found your why, especially when your why is very, very strong, I think that's the best time to start a business.
Yeah, I would agree with both comments. I think that the why is especially important if you're looking at being a social entrepreneur, because that is what you're going to have to battle to achieve. It's not easy to be a social entrepreneur, but it is going to be very motivated to you, and it's going to motivate people around you. So if you feel compelled by the why, that is a really good starting point, but it's not enough. It's not sufficient. So I think you also need to then have a great idea that you believe in, and I think you need to make sure that you've got the funding capability to sustain it in the initial period. So a lot of people will dive into an idea and run out of cash. So one of the ways to have the right funding is to develop a really good business plan and then test it on investors or your family to make sure they're motivated and believe in you. So wherever that source of funding comes from, make sure you've got enough, and make sure that you've got the plan that compels people to invest in your business idea.
Agreed, definitely. So regarding like what that idea is, we talked just about timing. Now I'd like to ask a little bit, how would an entrepreneur decide what business venture is specifically right for them?
Yeah, I think that depends on the skill set that you have. If you are good in a specific thing, and there is so happen an opportunity that match that there is some problem you need to solve, and then I think that you can consider that. Yeah.
I would say that I come back to the why, and Khim's point earlier, which is that if you're really compelled by that why, then you can attract a team of people to support your idea. And in reality, modern business is very complex. I think the idea that one individual can have all the skills necessary to make a business succeed, I think is a little bit outdated. And I think a would-be entrepreneur should be looking at developing a team around him or her. And so that needs, the business plan and the proposition needs to be compelling. The why needs to be inspiring, so that you can attract that team.
I'd add as well, Nunzio and Khim, I completely agree with, and I'd add a wrinkle just from my own perspective to this, that you really have to not just have that comparative or competitive advantage in what you're bringing to the table as an entrepreneur, but you really, really have to have a passion. You have to enjoy what you're doing when you found a business or a new startup or enterprise because of the fact that it is an immersive life experience. You end up sacrificing a lot of the little things that we all enjoy. So I would also say you better really be passionate about what you're doing, because to Nunzio's point, besides potentially running out of cash, I think the next biggest risk factor is burnout, and just wanting to give up. So it has to be something that you are very passionate about, you really believe in, and it's something you enjoy doing to a considerable degree, to the point where you're willing to stick through the difficult times. So that from my perspective, that would be a key for me, and how we've persisted through some of the more difficult times.
Yeah, I can't agree more to Ken, because if we are not passionate enough in what we do, you get burnt out very soon and very fast. And that passion actually comes from what Nunzio was saying, the why. If your why is strong enough, you'll be very happy doing whatever you do. In fact, if you ask me, you won't feel tired doing it.
Yeah, and I think society has changed. So I think, when I went to Wharton in 88 to 90, we were still in that era where greed was good, and people could pursue profit in itself and have people follow them. So actually, it wasn't looked at. I think today we're in a very different environment, and people who are just motivated by money will find it very difficult to inspire people to follow them. And without people, you have nothing. So it's even more important today than it was back then to be, to have a vision, to have a why.
Yeah,
and it absolutely helps you. It helps you to overcome.
Totally 100% agree to that.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, we do work in a world where, founding your own business is not always a solo endeavor. Could you guys talk a little bit about how founding teams come from all walks of life, and how those multidisciplinary skill sets really complement each other towards creating a successful business?
Sure, I can start on this one. So as I said, I started QS whilst a student at the Wharton campus, and I was able to benefit from fellow students who were kind of like my focus group. So I had this mission in mind and could talk to other international students on campus and say, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And they actually became part of the founding team. So, a couple of Americans, another Brit, an Italian, I think various other nationalities all joined me to support the setup of QS whilst we were still fellow students, and doing this in our spare time, which you don't have a lot of spare time when you're doing an MBA. So they really sacrificed as I did to get this business up and running. And we had a viable business before I left business school, thanks to them. And in my first few years, I actually did have some Wharton MBAs work with me. That's no longer true, but they're business schools now. And so I think that you get your founding team and making them believe in you.
Yeah, I think Nunzio brings up a great point, and I'd also add to that as well that yes, there are strengths that sort of cover the gamut or cover the board when you're looking to identify partners or co-founders to get involved with the startup. But I'd also issue a warning that you should really be careful about who you get yourself involved with at the end of the day. For example, you might see it, or you might come across an individual who you envision is the ideal counterpart to your skill set, but you still need to be very careful about evaluating that person's character and behavior. I've been very blessed because I have a phenomenal co-founder, and we just happen to complement each other in practically every way, but that oftentimes is not the case. So just being careful about who you get involved with, and looking beyond the fact that they might have a nice complementary skill set to what you bring to the table is a really important thing, because I've seen firsthand what happens when that's not the case.
Yeah, I totally agree to that. Because we can't be doing things alone. We need a team to make it happen. So my side, I started off. Personally, I am more of a visionary, but very very less on implementation. I'm not good in implementation and all that, but I'm good in vision. Future thinking, visionary and all that. So the partners that I look for is actually who can actually implement and enjoy implementing. So these complement each other. Things like that.
Yeah. Well, sounds like, different perspectives on that definitely go a long way towards creating a business, or sometimes even the failure of such a business. So I'd like to delve a little bit into, in your own lives, could you guys name one or two leading mentors or a role model in your life that has affected your entrepreneurial thinking process?
I'm always amazed by Richard Branson. If you know him, Ethan.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Right.
Virgin Airlines, I think.
Um,
Yeah. It's a very interesting process because my own parents are entrepreneurs themselves, and they always told me, when you're looking for mentors or role models, don't let it just be them, just their parents. Always look for others. And I'm sure you guys have tons of people you look up to. Ken, were you about to say something?
Yeah, I would say for me, it's a bit more from my perspective, palpable, in that the individuals who really affected my life, I was fortunate and blessed enough to have worked very closely alongside them. One of them is a local Philadelphia entrepreneur who's one of our lead investors, Ned Moore, who really went out of his way to take a chance on us. And the greatest lesson I got from him was to be stable in your emotional response and reactivity to things, not to feel the highs too much, not to feel the lows too much, but to try to ride that middle wave as well, because it's a challenging process, and he's been through that many times before. So that's what he really imbued on me. And I'd say not only has that been the greatest lesson that I've carried through these last several years, but he's made a phenomenal impact on both of us from a mentorship standpoint.
Great. Well, I'm fortunate that I had the professor at Wharton, Jerry Wind, who was the head of marketing, who has remained a good friend since I was at the school, who I now run a conference called the Wharton QS Reimagined Education Conference and global awards with him. And he's been a support since the beginning. So he reviewed my first business plan and said that he thought it had some merit in it, which was very encouraging. I really appreciated that. And then I've had, I've often employed consultants or staff who were much older than me, because I started the business when I was 25, who have come into the business and helped provide that experience and worldliness that maybe I lacked. I was full of naive enthusiasm, but actually you do need a little bit of experience and gravitas at the time. So various people within the business. And I also like that concept of being even and calm that Ken mentioned. I don't know if I can go back to Latin, but there's a story of Daedalus and Icarus, who flew too close to the sun, that I've always taken as a guide through my life, never to fly too close to the sun or too close to the sea. Take that middle road. I think it's a really sensible. There are lots of, real estate investors do the opposite. They throw the dice, and sometimes the dice rolls and they win. And sometimes the dice doesn't and they go bust, but they come back. That's not my approach. So I do appreciate what Ken said.
Yeah. And adding on to that point with like flying too close to the sun, we see, especially in the startup world, people like overpromising, overselling. I mean, part of a CEO's job is to definitely, sell your product and service to the best of your ability. But can you guys draw upon like what examples have you seen in your own life, maybe a competitor or a peer, where you just saw them fly too close to the sun? They didn't get out of the business quick enough, or they did too much, you know?
Besides
And
WeWork, Ethan?
oh, sorry.
Besides WeWork?
Besides
Yeah.
WinWork, yeah, yeah.
Well, I can just say that for me specifically, I don't know if I have an example off the top of my head as to folks who quote unquote flew too close to the sun. But I will say that one of the greatest lessons that I learned, because I think in the US, to be honest with you, it's part of our culture to overpromise in many cases and extend ourselves to a fault where we end up hurting not just ourselves, but obviously the client as well. And one of the greatest things I learned from a cultural standpoint in Germany, which they just hammered into me so many times, is under promise and over deliver. And so that's one of the things that we carried into what we do from a business perspective. I mean, especially working with film and television, as soon as you say you can do something, they will hold that to you ironclad. You will not be able to wriggle your way out of that. So you learn very quickly to be very careful about what you convey to your clients, about what you can achieve and what you cannot. So that is really great point you bring up and a great question, Ethan, and something I'd emphasize to any entrepreneur. Be very careful about what your bandwidth is, what your leverage is, and be very pointed about what you tell the client that you can solve for them at the end of the day, or provide to them as a solution.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that, Ken. And as I said, we run the Wharton QS Reimagine Education Awards, so we get over 1,000 entries every year. Many of them from universities, but also a lot from edtech entrepreneurs. So I've seen my fair share of hockey stick business plans, and unfortunately, in the sort of during the pandemic, really from 2019 to 2022, there was a huge amount of money, cheap money available, and so lots of money has flown into the edtech sector. Huge numbers of business startups, but now we're seeing huge numbers of failures because they didn't have realistic business plans. They maybe accessed some cheap money, but they didn't really have the product that was adapted to market. And also, they didn't understand how to go to market. So education is very disparate. The school communities in the US, are very difficult purchase decisions. Institutions around the world, very difficult. Learning is changing. I'm sure we'll talk about it later. So I've seen a lot of failures in that edtech space, particularly in the last 12 months, from that overhyped pitch. And so I think that's why I mentioned earlier, have a solid business plan and get third parties to really evaluate it deeply, so that you are challenging yourself in your own thinking all the time.
Yeah, I think that's because my perspective is sometimes entrepreneurs lost focus and lost sight and of their purpose and all that due to market competition. The competition is very, very high until everybody start to focus on making money. So if that happens, it will be very, very soon that the business start to fail, because they have lost the passion, they have lost the focus. So, and then sometimes a lot of time also, I think it is because of the mindset whereby people think about win-lose situation, whereby that they forgot about in some situation we can still make some arrangement with competitors, to create a win-win situation whereby nobody lose. Of course, to create this situation, we need to do give and take. A lot of give and take need to be adjusted and done. So sometimes all these are due to market competition. So when the competition is very high, people tends to forget about the purpose and lost focus. So I think that contributes a lot to these failures and all that also.
Agreed. Yes, definitely took away a lot from that. Just the dynamics of how complex this this world can really be, and your thoughts on it were really well appreciated. Going into a little bit of my specific speaker questions, I wanted to ask Khim first. He talked a little bit about competition. In this world where it's really globalized and you can make money online, entrepreneurship has never seemed so easy before in any time in history. But we know it's not. Entrepreneurship it's never easy. So how can prospective entrepreneurs competitively educate themselves in the online ecosystem to be a strong player in this world?
Okay, talking about learning, I think I wouldn't say how we are going to educate ourselves, but I would say that education in the modern entrepreneurship journey is a must. So we cannot stop learning, regardless whether it is a skill-based learning or whether it is a mindset learning, or business model learning. All these we need to continue to improvise and continue to learn all along. There's no stopping, if I ask me. So and then we need to have a overall view of the whole business, whereby a lot of things are just tools. So, and of course, coming back to the basic, we still need to have a very, very strong purpose, the very strong why. So if we want to our business to last long, and we want to leave a legacy to the world, I think the why is a must. It is a must to identify and work out a very, very strong purpose and very strong why. Otherwise, the business won't last long. You get you will get phased out very, very fast. So that's my take.
Yeah, definitely. The why is a huge part, and actually segues to our next question for Nunzio. Nunzio, you talked a little bit about how there was an era where greed was really the driving force behind startups, and money was flowing quickly. The economy kept investing in startups, and which led to the dot-com bubble and collapses of multiple industries. So nowadays, as results of that, we see startups that are a lot more socially conscious. How would you say entrepreneurship has really evolved to integrate socially conscious practices in today's business models?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a great question, Ethan. And what we see is a huge growth, and I'm sure this audience is full of like-minded people, a huge growth in the number of people who want to be social entrepreneurs. And that in itself is great, because even if don't become an entrepreneur, you can be a socially conscious business manager within your enterprise and drive a positive agenda within a company. So don't think that social entrepreneurship is limited to the people who start their own business. You can be a social entrepreneur. So I think that's why I think it's so important that education does evolve to foster this. And the starting point is teaching ethics and values. I mentioned Jerry Winders as a mentor of mine. He was the guy who revised the Wharton curricula in 1991, the year after I left, to be very innovative, multidisciplinary, international. But he also, and that's when Wharton really became one of the world's, if not the world's top business school. So he had a massive impact on the world of business education. He wanted to embed ethics and values across all courses at the Wharton School. But he had a problem. Wharton had a department of ethics, and they said, no, we don't want to relinquish our own courses. So we're not willing to give up our territory and allow it to be integrated across all the courses. Today, that thinking is really old school. Today, business schools, universities are trying to embed ethics across their courses. And I think when students are evaluating postgraduate or even undergraduate options, they should ask if that's the case. Similarly, understanding sustainability and the SDGs. If you're a science major, then understanding how your science can positively impact on sustainability is a great subject that most STEM courses are trying to inculcate. And I think that the adoption of sustainability thinking within the curricula is vital. The United Nations is providing a lot of tools for that. There is a climate literacy training provided by the UN that faculty can adopt within their curricula. And even QS, we set up a charity called QS Impact, qsimpact.org. And QS Impact, its purpose is to really support young people and to recognize them for making a positive impact on society, and to do that by connecting universities, organizations, and communities. So we've set up a program called Future 17. We have about 20 world-class universities, Imperial College, UCL, Chinese University of Hong Kong, Arizona State University, that joined it. And that program is producing multi-institutional teams to work on SDG-based projects that the charity sources from organizations around the world. So we're giving young students real experiential learning opportunities on sustainability projects. The reason that's important is that learning by doing is one of the best ways to learn. And so if you can find opportunities to actually make an impact through project-based learning, I would always encourage that. And it's increasingly available within the curricula. QS is driving that agenda. And I think that that's a really important part of the role of higher education today, is to give kids the opportunity to learn by doing through experiential learning.
Yep.
Yes, for sure. An extremely diverse experience that gives them as much hands-on practice as possible. Super important for today's arising entrepreneurs and just skills in general in the education space.
Yeah, and let me just emphasize that point. So today, a lot of the skills that really matter are not just the technical hard skills, it's also the soft skills. And those soft skills you don't learn from a textbook or a classroom. You learn by engaging with people, working in teams, trying to convey your ideas, etc. So again, project-based, consultative-based learning is a great way to develop those soft skills that are going to help you in your career. So when we talk about how curricula need to evolve, it needs to evolve not just in developing those sustainability skills, but also developing those soft skills.
Agreed. And definitely how that really evolves across different ecosystems. I know Ken, he mentioned that he did some work in Germany, had education in Australia, China, and the United States. He's been all over the place. Ken, could you tell us a little bit about kind of how has that background really informed your business practices and the way you view soft skills and cultural differences?
It has been life defining for me, and I want to bridge from what Nunzio said as well about sort of that immersive experience and how learning by doing really helps shape you from a professional and personal standpoint as well. And I can tell you that immersive experience. I studied Chinese in college, and I didn't learn really any of the language until I actually lived in Beijing. When I went to Germany, I spoke no German, but of course, being immersed in the culture and having to use the language and sort of going back using the phrase earlier, learning by doing, is where I developed those skills. And the same thing goes for cultural IQ. And I had the opportunity to work prior to my time with the business currently as an intercultural consultant. So I traveled the world and I addressed many DAX-listed companies and Fortune 500 companies about leveraging this understanding of culture to help improve your working collaborations or your international projects, mergers, acquisitions, running the gamut. I think cultural intelligence, especially in a society where everything is in its deepest roots very globally oriented, it is so critical to develop that understanding for how to work successfully across cultures, how to understand the nuances in both the business practices and even sort of the personal habits and values and behaviors that sort of drive what we witness when we travel abroad or work abroad. So for me, it was one of the biggest gifts that I could have received in working and living in so many different countries. And it really was one of the foremost catalysts for helping me to sort of bridge some very difficult times, both professionally and personally, especially over the last 5-6 years with our business being a global enterprise at this point. So I can't speak enough for it. And I think anyone who's listening to this, if you have an opportunity to spend any time abroad in whatever the scenario may be, please take it. It will set you worlds apart, and it will give you a phenomenal start over a lot of your competition, whether you're working in the corporate or entrepreneurial sectors.
Completely agree.
Yeah, agreed. I would say one last thing I'd like to add to that point is, I guess, what are your just quick thoughts on, yes, between cultures and workplace practices across countries, it can be a different experience and it can be a little intimidating, and not to any individual's fault. It's just their upbringing, and there are those that have different values and belief in the system. What would you say to students who might feel they have some misconceptions on how to really work with others from a different background, and how can they overcome that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it we need to have build up we need to have a good tolerance, and sometimes we can try to stand, that when we look at the thing, there is always a few angles to look at it. One is our own angle, which is a natural, so sometimes when people talk about their point of view, so we try our best to stand from their point of view to understand from their perspective also. And in order to do this, I think we need to encourage everybody to speak up. Don't keep it inside you. Just speak up. What you think about it, and those who listen also be open and try to understand from every angle of the thing. By doing that, I think it's not difficult. It's easy to understand each other and work together.
Agreed. Yeah. To move on from that point, it's
just to I think curiosity is a great word and really useful. So as Ken said, having that cultural intelligence, if you are curious, then you're going to want to understand why your German colleagues are doing the things they're doing, what makes them tick. And by asking those questions, you start to learn and understand about them. So what may seem completely alien or even nonsense, QS has an investor, Mitsui Corporation, which is a Japanese corporation, one of the big Japanese conglomerates. And if Japanese mindset is very particular, but I love exploring their thinking and understanding why they do things the way they do. And I learned so much. I think curiosity is a really useful trait to have in life in general, and especially as an entrepreneur.
Ethan, I'll just add to what Khim and Nunzio said as well, since this is very very poignant for the business trip that I have early next week. I think it's really, really important, because you asked the question about misperceptions that we might have about others that could be stemming from culture. To really take a hard look at what that misperception or what that characterization you have of that behavior is, and to stop and say, wait a minute, what could be the advantage of this actually? I'll give you a good example. A lot of times living in Germany, the Germans would complain that especially the Latin American and Latin European cultures would be too wanting to socialize all the time and small talk and spend time out of the workplace, and no, we need to focus on the task. And I would ask them, what's the advantage in the, for example, Mexican or Brazilian approach to really developing a relationship and spending time outside of the workplace at a restaurant or whatever? And they thought about it and they said, well, it does help our collaboration somehow, because we do seem to be more of a well-oiled machine. when we take time to, spend a little bit of time outside of the workplace with these folks. So really take a look at what that misperception is and what the advantage in what you don't like about the other culture may be. Because at the end of the day, going back to this whole idea of Darwinism, these traits developed for a specific reason. These traits, from a cultural standpoint, developed because they allowed the culture or those individuals from that region or cultural geographic area to thrive. So really taking a look at what could be the positives that come out of what frustrates me about working with these other individuals. It is really important.
Agreed. Definitely, a whole cross-cultural examination of business is certainly, a very deep question that we all have to ask ourselves as the world continues to become more globalized. My last question for today, and Nunzio could go first since I know he has to get going soon. So we talked a whole bunch about starting a business, entrepreneurship, those sort of things, and business practices. My final question for today is, even if a student or a young person or any person across any walk of life, age, or background, even if they don't pursue entrepreneurship, how might learning it benefit them in life?
Sure, I'm happy to go this. I think that, as I mentioned earlier, there is a role for the social entrepreneur within any organization. Entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship is about seeing new ideas, thinking out of the box, and helping an organization to grow and evolve. And so I would argue that most companies that QS collaborates with or works with are looking for people with that mindset, that willingness to challenge the conventional wisdom, the willingness to seek out opportunity. So although I don't think entrepreneurship is a mandatory part of an education, and for a lot of people it may not be the right thing, for a lot of people, even if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, it can be really useful. And just changing the way you think is something which a lot of organizations will really appreciate. And QS has a lot of content on entrepreneurship and education on our website, topuniversities.com. So if people want to explore that topic, it's one of the things that we do is we actually try to educate people about where they can get the right education, which universities, which business schools are delivering that kind of education effectively through our ranking systems and our rating systems. So please feel free to explore. So I do have to drop off, unfortunately. Thank you very much. Very nice to meet you all. Ken, Khim, Ethan, thank you very much.
Thanks, Nunzio. Great.
Thank you so much for being here. You have a good one.
All right. See you.
Cool. Yeah. So would you guys kind of like to wrap up his point with your own perspectives on how entrepreneurship and the skills developed from these, even if you do not do entrepreneurship? It's a very difficult decision, and one you can't frankly blame someone for not doing. It's not everyone has the capability or availability to do it. What skills can they learn from it anyways, even if just from learning?
I think two very important skills. Someone can actually learn from entrepreneurship is actually teamwork. If you ask me, I think teamwork and communication skills. Because when you do business, you can't do it alone. You need a team. So in order to work in a team, you really need to have teamwork and communications. And of course, you need to polish up your skill. You need to have you don't focus on only single skill. You need to have a lot of skill sets to make it work. And then of course, the other thing I think very important thing is entrepreneur mindset. The people tend to be an overachiever. They do more than they try to achieve more than what they can do now. So that is how people achieve those unbelievable and things. So I think those are the things that people can take up, even if they don't want to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, Ethan, I totally agree with Khim on that. It does it does help to instill this tremendous drive in you to go above and beyond in all cases, which I think is a big thing. For me, also, I can't help but shake when you ask that question first, the thought that, and obviously you have Dr. Angela Duckworth at Penn as well, but it's really this idea of grit. It helps to forge this tremendous perseverance, this sense of perseverance and sense of grit in you that you really, at least from my perspective, it's difficult to develop from other areas. And I think being an entrepreneur, going through the rigmarole, through the tremendous highs and lows, experiencing firsthand those sacrifices that you need to make in your personal and professional life. And, you know, in a way, and look, I don't want to scare anyone who's going into this area, but in a way, there is an element of psychological torture for what you do.
True.
And it's compounded by the fact that you often see your friends and former colleagues. They look like, oh, they're getting light years ahead and they're making so much money and they're starting their lives. And look at where I've just been going backwards. And you have to be able to block all of that noise out. And I think whether you ultimately decide to continue in your entrepreneurial path or you decide, hey, look, I'm going to put my hands up, this is enough for me. At the end of the day, it develops a tremendous sense of perseverance and grit that will lend extremely well to whatever you do in life. So that's what I would imbue on the folks listening to the conference now. So
Totally
Awesome.
agree. Totally
Well,
agree.
all great answers. Thank you so much. And to really cap it off, I loved how you guys talked about just blocking out the noise and building that grit and, just truly understanding why you're getting into it. Today we covered everything from social impact, learning how to understand sacrifice, team dynamics, and the importance of cross-cultural communication. All very serious matters to talk about when it comes to really building your own skill set as an entrepreneur or other skill sets. And this could be very serious, but as I'd like to say, from a German poet, gave this beautiful quote: "Learn what it is to be taken seriously and laugh at the rest." And this should be a great quote to we all should follow, especially as entrepreneurs. We take things so seriously that every little change, opportunity, moment could just nosedive a business. You have to be on every single day, as I'm sure Ken, Khim, and Nunzio all know very deeply. So anyway, that's all the questions I had today. I really enjoyed today's talk, and thank you so much for joining us on the Global Game Changer Summit 2023.
thanks, Ethan. Thanks,
Thank
Kim.
you, Ethan. Thanks, Ken. Nice meeting you all. Thank you.
Nice.
Bye.